Welcome to the STARS program, seniors taking active roles in society. And now, here's your host, ANITA FINLEY.
Problems with family members not agreeing on how to take care of their parent. And I'm so glad that Joe KARP is going to be on our show now because, boy, do I have questions for him. So, Joe, thank you so much for being on our show. And I know that you see it all the time, but of late, I have been talking with people who absolutely are having just major disagreements with family members, how to take care of their parent.
Well, good morning, and I'm not surprised. I mean, as most people who have raised children know, they're not the same. They have sibling rivalries, whether they're out in the open or not. And it doesn't have to be a lot of families, but there's enough of them out there. And there's really got a lot of familial stress as a result. You're right.
Yeah.
Do you want to give me the tales of woe that you've recently heard, or?
Well, no, actually, this is funny. My one friend takes care of her mother down here, and the brother and my friend are the trustees. He's up north with his wife of some faraway place. And yet he wants to know everything she's doing, and now the daughter-in-law has gotten involved. And she doesn't like what my friend is doing. And the mother is still very sharp down here, and she's having a terrible time with this with her children. So I suggested, actually, that they go to you, that my friend goes to you and says, go talk to him, because somehow I know he'll figure out how to help you with this.
Well, I'll give you my start.
Okay.
My start would be that I would tell your friend, have your mother go to him, because she's the client. She's the one who gets to understand her responsibilities, her rights, and the problems she is creating. And if your friend comes to me, what we've still got is an adversarial. Now we've created even more adversarial. The sister got a lawyer rather than the mother went to a lawyer. And my first comment to the mother would be, by the way, depending on what I heard initially, is my advice to her might be, this is what you should do, et cetera, et cetera. But I'm going to tell you, don't hire me. Go back to the lawyer who did your original documents. Go see that lawyer unless there's a reason why not. And sometimes it's I didn't like that lawyer, or I didn't think they were competent, or they've moved, or whatever. But I end up saying to the mother, go back to your lawyer. And she says, why? I like you. I said, because your son's going to hear the reason the lawyer you picked was the one your daughter found. It's already going to taint the whole thing. So quite frequently I say, go back to your original lawyer. You have seen me for a consultation, but at least when the urinating contest starts between the son and the daughter, we have everybody saying, well, it's mom's lawyer, not mom's new lawyer that I picked or mom's lawyer that you picked, but mom's lawyer who did her documents in the past, who did all the changes for mom. That sometimes helps diffuse or at least eliminate. Now, sometimes mom doesn't want to go back to that lawyer, where she said, why didn't this lawyer see this in the beginning? I mean, I had somebody in who saw me yesterday, and her husband has dementia and has had a stroke about 3 years ago, and it impacted on his memory. And they saw their lawyer changed their documents a year ago, and the husband had these problems are slowly getting worse, but they were there. The same situation as who he is today was there a year ago. And I said, why did your husband get named as the person to make your medical decisions? And I said it to the husband, do you think you could make your wife's medical decisions? He said, well, I probably could make him, but he conceded he couldn't talk to 3 doctors and remember what the hell they were saying to make an intelligent decision. He would really need his daughter to crystallize the information. And even then, he said, I'm not so sure I can no longer, put it all together and make a decent decision. And I said, well, why didn't your lawyer do that? And she said, because I went in and said, we just moved down to Florida, and I need to get health care documents for Florida. And he said, okay, in your last documents, your husband was in charge, and those documents were done 10 years ago. He'd make your medical decisions. And the lawyer never asked about mental condition, never asked about cognitive skills, never asked about any of that stuff. And I said, well, these got to be fixed. And she said, why didn't he ask that? I said, I can't answer for the other guy. So sometimes going back to the other guy doesn't work, and then we cover it very clearly. And I even keep an article that I did for Boomer Times is reprinted in my waiting room, and copies are there, and it's called Why the Waiting Room, because I keep the daughter out of the room when the mother comes to me so that I can get independent thought from mother. But that's what she's got to do. Mom's got to go to a lawyer, and Mom's got to have a serious conversation with the lawyer. Mom's got to understand that equal is not fair, and we're talking about responsibilities, not beneficiaries. And we put things like in our durable power of attorney that the person in charge of the money must comply with the desires of the healthcare surrogate in terms of spending the money. So if daughter decides that mom needs home health care people and there's no insurance and it's going to cost $200 a day, we don't give the son the right of denying it. Under our power of attorney, it says you got to spend the money the agent says got to be spent. Unless there is no money, you spend it. So there's got to be discussions. I'm also board certified as a mediator, and I'm one of the few certified elder law attorneys who's also certified by the Supreme Court of Florida to act as a mediator. And sometimes I say, okay, you want a neutral, objective party to help you facilitate that rather than me being mom's lawyer. And I've done that with the moms of the world and had families in together to try to resolve things to avoid litigation. But it's a real-life problem. So the first thing people should do is, number one, if you don't have those problems now, but you're worried about that might happen in the future, one, meet with a real insightful, questioning, non-yes-man lawyer. Not a fill-in-the-blanker. Who do you want
right.
for this? Who do you want for that?
Right.
When we meet with people, the first half hour is we talk about the people. We talk about the children, the in-laws, my clients, what they want, who they want, and we try to get to that. And then we say, now your family's got to know. These are the rules. This is who's in charge. This is the responsibility. That's the other thing half the people don't know. I had people come in this past week, where they came in to do their estate plan, and they were a couple in their 50s, and she had some questions about her mother. And I said, well, who's in charge of your mother's medical decisions if she can't make them? She said, I guess I am. I said, well, that guess isn't worth a damn.
Right, I guess.
I said, either your mother has done, she said, I know she's seen a lawyer. Well, just say to her, Mom, if somebody calls me up and says you were hit by a truck, I have nothing that tells me I have the authority to be the one who decides. I don't know who you want to decide. And if you've picked somebody else, that's your right. But let me know so I'm not in an argument with your sister who says I get to decide. Let's get this thing clear. So there's got to be communication. The communication shouldn't wait till it hits the fan. I mean, I've been in family meetings. I can think of one meeting where I really just spoke my mind. I had a mother who had significant means and her two daughters with her. She wanted the two of them in with regard to her estate plan. And it was just horrible watching these two daughters in their catfight. Well, I think I should get Mom's house. I'm serious.
Yeah.
And I finally turned to the two of them, and I turned to the mother. I said, I apologize, but I'm going to say something very nice to your daughters. I said, you know, at least vultures just circle the carcass until it falls. They don't start picking on it while it's still alive. I really did.
Terrible. Do you remember that Greek movie where they were doing that? What was that called? It was a movie years ago where the person hadn't died. They were already in the room getting everything. I forget what that movie was called. Same kind of thing.
No, it doesn't matter. But these decision making, first of all, the ground rule should be clear right away. The parents should say, this is what I have decided. Don't ask your daughter permission to name your son to be in charge of the money, if that's what you want. And understand, if you name two people, you're going to find yourself together. I always tell people, never ever make your health care decisions be unanimous, because people have different philosophies. Never ever. And they'll say, but either one of my daughters can do it. And I say, are you 100% certain that they see eye to eye philosophically on your health care beliefs? Because if you don't, if you say either or, because that's convenient sometimes, either or, remember, if they disagree, the doctor's hands are tied. The doctor can't have one daughter call up and say, do the surgery, and the other one say not. And we see that all the time, and we warn people about it. And I say, you can make sure that all of them have the right to the medical information, but you should set up a sequence of decision makers. Otherwise, there'll be battle. And then when you set that up, let everybody know and give them copies of the documents. Say, this one is in charge of my medical decisions. This one is next. This one is next. And then you can give your general philosophy about what your standards are for quality of life, for what type of treatment you would want or not, because it's not only just pull the plug time. It's nursing homes, it's care, it's radiation versus chemo versus nothing if you've got dementia. What's the story? And you've got to outline it. And sometimes the decision-making is totally philosophical. It has nothing to do with the money. And sometimes it has everything to do with the money.
Well, you are so right. And, I have to just say to you, to the listening audience, that Joe KARP has been our elder law attorney, and he really did save a situation we had personally, and he saw what could happen, and he took care of it beautifully. And when the situation occurred, it just went nowhere because, well, it took a little time, but Joe KARP is a person who thinks ahead, and he protects you. And I really have to urge you to call him, make it a point. If you don't have a lawyer now, please do go see him. And if you do and you want a second opinion, he'd be willing to help you. But the one thing you should, and let me give you his phone number, which I think is important if you want to do that, or just go to his website. His website is KARP Law. That's KARP law.com. And you can call him at his office if you need to talk with him. And that's 800-893-9911. And I think it's a good thing at this time now. He doesn't have any seminars in July, but he does in August. And it's really important that you attend them. You will get so much information. He calls in once a month on our radio show, and he always goes over some special things. But if you would go to one of his seminars, you would just be amazed at what you're going to learn. And so I think that's a good thing for us to talk about. I'm going to just give you the dates. Remember, this is Pencil Talk Radio. You want to see, you want to write it down and decide which particular seminar you want to go to. He has them in Palm Beach, and he has them in Palm Beach County and up in Port St. Lucie. So I'm going to tell everybody that as soon as I find the page, which I'm looking for.
I got it if you
have
want.
it? Okay, well, here I have it.
Sure.
I have it now. I have it. Okay, so we'll let you save your voice. It's Tuesday, August 9th from 1:30 to 4. It's called the Free Senior Survival Workshops. He really should charge for these, but he doesn't. It's a free senior survival workshop. Lasts about 3 hours. It goes from on Tuesday, August 9th from 1:30 to 4 at the Palm Beach Gardens Marriott. Then on Wednesday, August the 10th, from 1:30 to 4, Port St. Lucie Holiday Inn. And then on Thursday, August the 11th, from 1:30 to 4, Courtyard by Marriott in Boynton Beach. Please don't miss those seminars. It's the best deal in town. I really mean that.
And just for your listeners, the Tuesday one I will be doing. Wednesday and Thursday, Attorney Jenny Bernstein, who's been with me now 12 years, who's a board-certified elder law
I can't
attorney,
believe it when you first brought her in. I mean, I can't believe it's been 12 years, Joe.
I was sitting here as you were talking to Dr. Mencia.
Yes.
And I was listening and thinking, and I've been thinking because I've been both at your physically there with you, and I've been on the phone with you, and I know you do this show for 3 hours every Saturday, and I think I've been doing it with you for 17 or 18
Absolutely.
years.
You have.
I think more than that. I think I started in 1995, 1996 at the latest, actually. And I thought, have you ever calculated how many waking hours or waking days you've actually done the show? Because you've done this show since 19 what?
Oh, probably about 25 years.
So you've done it for 25 years, and that means you've done 75 hours, 80 hours a year. So that's 10 days a year. You have spent 200, that's 200, that's 8 days a year times 25. You've spent over 200 days, really 24-hour cycles, on the air doing this show. What a great service to the community.
What a great service to me also. I was thinking about that. I'm glad you brought that up because I'm always amazed at people like you, Dr. Mencia, who are so brilliant and can just talk, whether you're sitting in the studio or making the phone call, or you can just say the most interesting things. You're articulate. It is such a pleasure. I just can't really express this. This is probably the most fun I have in my life.
I won't tell your husband that, okay?
You can tell him. He knows. When I leave at 4 a.m. to get to the radio show, he says, bye. Anyway, well, let's talk about you, though, because I wanted to go back to this other discussion. There was another case that just came up the same way, that when people aren't given the full responsibility, and that's Dr. Mencia and I were talking about that, even when it comes to hospice, that other relatives try to intercede with the person who's really in charge. Say, no, don't call hospice, no.
And what they have to do is, number one, it's appropriate to have that family talk. If you think it's going to, just make it clear. Say, look, Susie gets to make my medical decisions. She knows what I want, and she will respect my wishes, and that's it. And I just had a conversation with a client. It's interesting. She had 2 sons. One died. And her other son, the son who was second on the list, is now going to be first. And she was going to name her 20-year-old granddaughter second on health care. And she said, well, I said, that's kind of young to have to make all of these decisions for you. She said, well, I said, how long is your son married? She said, 30 years to this, or 27 years. to my daughter-in-law, Debbie. And I said, well, you told me earlier because we really do discuss. I said, would Debbie be appropriate? Do you trust her, et cetera, to make them instead of burdening a 20-year-old with that as a backup to your son? She said, oh, yeah, sure. Why didn't I think of that? And I said, well, I don't know, but let me ask you the next question. Call up Debbie, because you've told me Debbie is a pastor. It's a true story. I said, you should just talk to Debbie, because my client is not of the same religion or faith as Debbie and doesn't really know what her core religious values are. I said, call her up and say, I would like to name you. I would trust you to do it, but I really am somebody who doesn't want much medical intervention at this point in my life. If, it's appropriate, fine. If I'm going to get better, fine, but I really don't want much medical intervention. If I got notification that I had a significant cancer, I would not go through and she said that I wouldn't have any radiation. She might accept surgery before she would just say, give me chemo. She'd have to have a discussion with the doctor. I said, but ask Debbie, does this interfere with her religious beliefs? Because some people's religious beliefs say fight to the death to keep you alive. And she said, it hadn't occurred to me.
Right.
And she called up her daughter. I spoke to her yesterday morning because we had met on Wednesday, and she said she'd be able to. And she said her daughter-in-law, A, was honored that she was requested to serve, and B, appreciated her mother-in-law making sure that it was not interfere with her religious beliefs. So people should have that discussion, and also appreciated that the granddaughter, Debbie's daughter, would not be burdened with the responsibility and the decision-making for her grandmother, potentially. So people should have these discussions and then let everybody know who's in charge and let somebody know where you're coming from.
Yes, such good advice, Joe. You certainly have turned out to be, like a Solomon. You really are good. Besides knowing the law and everything you do have a certain way of, just like I tell Dr. Mencia too, he can take things and he makes analogies out of it, and it's so clear. And you do the same thing. Something that could be so difficult, you try to get up front before the paperwork is done so that in case something happens, it's all taken care of. Because when you think of it, Joe, when someone passes away, there's such mourning going on. There's such terrible things, or when people are very ill. Why add that to that problem?
Absolutely. I appreciate that compliment, and I really do take that to heart. I do want people to think about it. I do want people to recognize the ramifications, and don't take anything for granted. I had a client whose son was a surgeon who went ballistic when the client terminated his wife's life support. She was 91 years old, and he said, no, I don't want her, just let's bring in hospice and let's terminate life support. He went ballistic. The doctor's son went ballistic because that was his mommy. That had nothing to do with objectivity and medical knowledge. True story. And he ended up having to change his own documents. In fact, his son didn't talk to him for a year because the son said, you killed my mother.
Oh, my goodness.
Okay. So just because somebody is knowledgeable doesn't mean they are non-emotional. Yeah. Don't bring their own stuff to the table.
Yeah, you're right. And I know
you would have assumed if your son was a doctor, name him. He's the doctor.
Yeah.
So we find that sometimes occupationally, where people fit a stereotype occupationally that they would be appropriate for a job, they are not appropriate based upon who they are behaviorally. We have alcoholic accountant children who should not be running your finances because they're alcoholic. They have all of the knowledge, but none of the capability.
Yeah, and
So these are issues people should discuss. And the other thing is, people say to me quite frequently, I want to treat my children equally. And I say, well, that's leaving them the money equally. Don't always, I say, you know what I'd love? I'd love to be in an equal partnership where somebody else does all the work and I get half the money. So it doesn't, don't always think that the jobs have to be equal. That's the burden. Who can best suit and do that job?
Yeah, well, the one thing that, and I know we have to go, but remember KARP Law, KARP, law.com, and the one thing I will just share with everyone. So write a letter now to your family members if they're not all getting the same amount of money or how much you love them. Just there's a whole thing for that. And I know that Joe, when you work with him, it's an ethical will or something, but we don't have time to go into it. Maybe another time, Joe. But thanks so much. Have a great summer, and we'll talk to you in August.
Yep, and give your family copies of your health care documents and your powers of attorney.